Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Audrey Kamina and today I am going to be showing you how to do a quick little button repair on a plain old shirt. I know that I said my next video was going to be a 1940s capelet, but I was stricken with the inspiration to finally fix this shirt that has been sitting at the back of my closet for like the last 3 months. So let's get started. So the materials required for this project are super simple and almost everybody should have them in their homes. And if not, you can pick them up at any sewing store and honestly, any grocery store and even some gas stations in sewing emergency kits. So you just need a needle and thread, your button and your scissors of course, and your shirt. This is a super quick and simple project that's great for people who are total beginners to sewing, especially because you can just spruce up your old items that need a quick mend. So for the first step, we are just going to go ahead and cut our thread. I like to go with about my arm's length. I find that this amount is easy to work with and also is pretty much guaranteed to have exactly enough to sew on your button. You can have a little less or a little more, whatever you have lying around, but don't do too little because then you're going to have to knot on some more, and don't do too much because it can easily get tied up in knots if you have it flailing around with every stitch. So I find that this much is just enough. So once you've cut your thread, you're going to just want to go ahead and knot it like so. You want to make sure that you knot it at least 3 times. Honestly, I go for probably an exorbitant amount of times, like 6, because you definitely don't want your thread slipping through. And this thread is super fine, and my needle is honestly a little bit bigger than it should be, but it's the only one that I can find right now because I really don't want to go into the garage. Okay, now the most difficult part? I don't know. Threading your needle. So you're just going to want to go ahead and take the opposite end that does not have any knots on it and just slip it right through. That didn't work. Let's try that again. Haha. Oops. Dropped my needle. Threading the needle may be the single reason that I try to avoid hand sewing at all costs. Aha! Got it. Ta-da! So there you go. Make sure you don't drop your needle when you're doing this. This is probably not advisable. And then I always like to double it up quite a bit. And then you want to make sure that I hold my needle and then I hold my thread as well so that you don't have it slip through. The worst thing that can possibly happen is for it to slip through while you're sewing and then you've lost your thread and your needle's out of it and it's just the worst, a total pain. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and make our first stitch. So as you can see here, I've got my little cuff and here is where my missing button should be. So in order to know where to place my button, because I don't really remember, it's been a long time since this shirt was in full repair, I'm just going to look and I can see the little stitch marks. You can see 2 tiny little holes there where the thread used to go through. So I'm going to put my needle right through one of those, and also if you're having a hard time seeing it, you can hold it up to light and occasionally a little bit of light will peek through and let you know where your first stitch should be. So you're just going to slip your needle through the underside of the fabric so your tip should be coming out onto the right side. So this is the right side of the fabric. I just put my needle through the wrong side of the fabric and I'm going to pull it all the way through. Make sure you keep a good hold on your little end of your needle so that you don't pull it out of your thread, and then boom, I've got my first stitch here. You can see my knot is holding tight, and then I'm going to put my little button. What just happened? I just heard a snap. So apparently my knot wasn't large enough. Wonderful. That's not right. Let's place our needle through right here. So we are piercing through the underside and popping out onto the overside. And then we're going to pull it through, not too tight. You don't want to pull your knot through. And if you pull hard enough, you can pull any knot through pretty much. And then, so we've got our thread coming out on the top side, we've got our needle, and we've got our button. So I'm going to put it through one of the holes, doesn't matter which one, as long as your button is symmetrical. And so now I've got my button threaded on, and I'm going to go on the hole that is opposite to this hole. So the hole that's opposite, and then I'm going to pierce through that hole and then bring it back to the underside. So this stitch, as you can see, is going to be pulling our button tight. So this is going to be your rough placement of the button. So you want to definitely take a look here and make sure that everything looks how you want it to. And if it does, then you're going to continue on the back side and go back into your first hole. So you're going to go and pierce right back into the first hole you went through. And then from here, you guessed it, you're going back into that second hole that's opposite. So you're just gonna go between these holes a couple times. I usually go about 6 or 7 times before I switch to the perpendicular diagonal holes. So I'm just going to go around it, make it nice and tight, make sure your stitches are super even, and you'll see a little fat white line, or whatever color your thread is, start to form through your button. And once you get a little bit more experience, you'll be able to just do all of your stitches pretty much from the front side, just looking at the front side and then being able to pierce from the back and come through. But it's basically so that you go into one hole, so you come out of that first hole, you go over the little center of the button, and you go down through the second hole. So we're gonna do that a couple times. I think it's starting to look pretty good. As you can see, I've got that little white line on my thread there. And then I'm going to go to the hole that is perpendicular to it. So I've got my thread coming out of the backside right now. And now I'm going to go onto this little hole that has no thread in it right now. And that, so right here, I'm coming out of this hole that doesn't have anything sewn through it. And then I'm going to go to the hole that is opposite of that hole. So you're just making a little X. You're going in and out, making a little baby X. I just pulled out my thread again. It happens way too much, but you'll get pretty quick at threading it all the way back again. It's really relaxing when you don't pull your thread all the way through again, and make sure that it stays in your needle. But yeah, as long as you keep track of what hole you're going into, it should look pretty professional, or at least acceptable. So I'm about done. I've got my needle coming onto the backside. Now we are going to be working entirely through the backside. So I'm not going to be piercing the fabric anymore. What I am going to be going through is these little stitches that I've already made. So I'm going to go through the back of these stitches. I'm going underneath and pulling through, and you can see there's a little loop that's forming. And then I'm gonna go into the loop. Okay, so I'm gonna do that a couple times. This forms my little knot. So I'm going to go under my stitches. Caught a little of the fabric there. So I'm going under the stitches. I'm letting a little baby hole form, and then I'm pulling my needle through the hole, and that makes a super secure little knot. And this is just an extra precaution to make sure that your little button is never going to come out. So I do it about 3 times, and then I pull my needle off, and I do one more little baby knot, just like we did at the very beginning in our first step. And from here, I finish my button. So now I'm going to snip off my little thread, snip, snip. And there you have it. You've got your button completely all set. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. It's a super great project for beginning sewers. So if you're just getting started, it's super useful because you can just do a quick little mend, and it's a great entrance to hand sewing, especially because you don't need any material other than a needle and thread. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.